The manila folder slid across Detective Maya Reeves' desk, landing with a soft thud that belied the weight of its contents. Inside was a single photograph, a smiling 8-year-old girl with auburn hair and a missing front tooth. Scrawled on the back in desperate handwriting were 3 words that would change Maya's life forever: "Please find her." If you're moved by stories of hope in the darkest places, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This journey of a broken father, a dedicated detective, and a missing little girl will take you through every emotion imaginable, and the truth they discover after 4 long years will leave you breathless. Detective Maya Reeves had seen her share of missing children cases in her 12 years with the Portland Police Department. Each one left its mark, but something about this case, about the hollow-eyed father sitting across from her desk, told her this one would carve itself into her soul. "Mr. Callahan, I need you to start from the beginning," Maya said, her voice gentle but firm as she opened her notebook. "Tell me everything about the day Lily disappeared." James Callahan's hands trembled as he clasped them together. For days of stubble darkened his jaw, and the shadows beneath his eyes spoke of sleepless nights. "It was supposed to be a normal Saturday," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lily and I were at Riverside Park. She was on the swings, she loves the swings, and I was sitting on the bench maybe 20 feet away. I looked down at my phone for what couldn't have been more than 30 seconds to answer a text from work." His voice cracked. "When I looked up, she was gone." Maya nodded, jotting notes. "And this was 5 days ago?" 5 days, 7 hours, and, he glanced at his watch, 23 minutes. "The police have been looking, but they're telling me there are no leads. They're starting to suggest that maybe her mother took her, but that's impossible." "Why is that impossible, Mr. Callahan?" James ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Because Eliza, my ex-wife, died 2 years ago. Cancer. It's been just Lily and me since then." Maya felt a pang in her chest. She'd read the preliminary report before James arrived, but hearing him say it made the situation all the more heartbreaking. "I understand the department has assigned detectives to Lily's case," Maya said carefully. "Why come to me specifically?" James reached into his pocket and pulled out a newspaper clipping. It was an article from the previous year about how Maya had found a missing boy who had been gone for nearly a month. "Because they're giving up," he said, his eyes suddenly fierce. "I can see it in their faces. They think she's just another statistic now. But you don't give up. That's what they say about you." Maya studied the man before her. Department policy discouraged taking private cases while actively serving, but there were exceptions. And something in James Callahan's desperate eyes made her reach for the folder. "I can't promise anything, Mr. Callahan," she said. "But I'll look into it. Off the books, in my spare time." The relief that washed over his face was palpable. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." Maya's apartment became command central for the search. Maps covered her living room walls, red string connecting possible sightings, witness statements, and security camera footage. James came by every evening after work, bringing coffee and whatever information he'd gathered during the day. 2 weeks into their search, Maya noticed something odd in the security footage from a gas station 3 blocks from the park. A dark sedan with tinted windows had circled the area 3 times in the hour before Lily's disappearance. "The license plate is partially obscured," Maya said, pointing to the grainy image on her laptop. "But I can make out enough to run a partial." James leaned in, his shoulder brushing against hers. In the past weeks, they'd developed a rhythm, a partnership born of shared purpose. Maya had learned that James was an architectural engineer who had scaled back his hours after Eliza's death to be more present for Lily. He'd learned that Maya had become a detective after her own sister had gone missing as a teenager, a case that remained unsolved. "You think this could be something?" James asked, hope creeping into his voice for the first time in days. "It's worth checking out," Maya said, careful not to promise too much. She'd seen too many leads evaporate into nothing. The partial plate led them to a rental car company. The sedan had been rented by a woman named Claire Donovan, who had paid in cash and used what turned out to be a fake ID. "It's something," Maya said as they sat in her car outside the rental agency. "But Claire Donovan is probably an alias." James stared out the window, his jaw tight. "Why would someone take Lily? We don't have money. There's been no ransom demand. It doesn't make sense." Maya had been asking herself the same question. Random kidnappings were rare. Most children were taken by someone they knew, a relative, a family friend. But with Lily's mother deceased and James having no family in the area, the usual suspects were eliminated. "Tell me more about Eliza," Maya said as she drove them back to her apartment. "What was she like before she got sick?" James was quiet for so long that Maya thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft with memory. "Eliza was complicated. Brilliant but troubled. We met in college. She was studying art history, I was in engineering. She had this way of seeing beauty in everything." He smiled faintly. "After Lily was born, things got harder. Eliza struggled with depression. There were good periods and bad ones. We separated when Lily was 5, but we were working on co-parenting when Eliza got sick." "Did she have family? Friends who were close to Lily?" James shook his head. "Eliza was estranged from her parents. They never approved of me, or of her lifestyle choices. They didn't even come to her funeral." Maya filed this information away. Estranged grandparents were always a possibility in custody-related abductions. As weeks turned into months, Maya and James fell into a pattern. By day, she worked her assigned cases, by night, they hunted for Lily. The official investigation had gone cold, just as James had feared, but Maya refused to let go. 6 months after Lily's disappearance, they got their first real break. "I found something," Maya said, calling James the moment he would be off work. "Can you come over now?" 20 minutes later, James was at her door, out of breath from taking the stairs 2 at a time. "What is it?" he asked, his eyes scanning the new additions to Maya's evidence wall. Maya pointed to a printout of a bank statement. "I've been digging into Eliza's financial history. In the year before she died, she made 6 cash withdrawals of exactly $5,000 each." James frowned. "That doesn't make sense. We were barely making ends meet with her medical bills. Where would she get that kind of money?" "That's what I wondered," Maya continued. "So I looked deeper. Eliza had a second bank account you didn't know about. It received regular deposits from a company called Artemis Consulting. I've never heard of them. They're a shell corporation," Maya explained. "It took some digging, but I traced it back to a man named Robert Whitmore." The name clearly meant nothing to James, but Maya pulled up a photograph on her laptop. It showed an older man with silver hair and cold eyes, standing on the steps of a courthouse. Robert Whitmore is a powerful attorney who specializes in family law. He's also the father of Claire Donovan, whose real name is Claire Whitmore. James stared at the screen, confusion written across his face. "I don't understand. What does this lawyer have to do with Eliza? Or with Lily's kidnapping?" Maya took a deep breath. "I think Eliza was working for Whitmore in some capacity. And I think Claire Whitmore may have taken Lily on her father's orders. The question is why?" That question led them down a rabbit hole of connections and coincidences that seemed too deliberate to be chance. Eliza had worked as a research assistant at the university's law library during the same period that Whitmore had been building a case against a pharmaceutical company, the same company that manufactured the chemotherapy drugs that had failed to save her life. "You think Eliza was feeding him inside information for his lawsuit?" James asked, pacing Maya's living room. "It's possible," Maya said. "But that doesn't explain why they would take Lily years later. The answer came in the form of a sealed court document that Maya obtained through a contact in the county clerk's office. The document revealed that Whitmore had lost the pharmaceutical case when his key witness, a company whistleblower, had recanted their testimony at the last minute. The witness was Eliza, Maya said quietly, showing James the document. She agreed to testify about research data that had been suppressed, then changed her mind just before the trial. James sank onto Maya's couch, his face ashen. She never told me any of this. The case would have been worth millions, Maya continued. Whitmore stood to make a fortune in contingency fees. When Eliza backed out, he lost everything he'd invested in the case. So this is revenge? He took Lily to punish Eliza? But Eliza is dead. Maya shook her head. I don't think it's that simple. Whitmore is calculating, not impulsive. Taking Lily would be an enormous risk. There has to be more to it. The more they learned about Robert Whitmore, the more complex the picture became. He had a reputation for ruthlessness in his professional life, but was also known as a family man who had raised Claire as a single father after his wife's death. His firm specialized in high-stakes divorce and custody battles, often representing wealthy clients seeking to gain leverage over their ex-spouses. I think I know why he took Lily, Maya said one night, nearly a year into their investigation. They were sitting on her balcony, the summer air warm around them. It's about DNA. James looked up from the case files he'd been reviewing. DNA? What do you mean? The pharmaceutical case hinged on genetic testing data. The company was accused of knowing their drug was ineffective for patients with certain genetic markers that Eliza had. Understanding dawned on James's face. And Lily would have inherited those markers. Maya nodded. Whitmore lost his case because Eliza wouldn't testify. But if he could prove the drug's ineffectiveness through Lily's DNA and medical records showing Eliza's treatment failure, he could refile the lawsuit, James finished, horror creeping into his voice. He took my daughter to use her as evidence? The theory made terrible sense, but proving it would be nearly impossible. Whitmore was too smart to leave an obvious trail, and without knowing where Lily was being kept, they couldn't move against him. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maya had been cultivating a relationship with Whitmore's former assistant, a woman named Denise who had left the firm under unclear circumstances. After months of careful conversations, Denise finally revealed that Whitmore owned a secluded property in the mountains, registered under his late wife's maiden name. It's where he goes when he doesn't want to be found, Denise told Maya over coffee. I only know about it because I had to courier urgent documents there once. The property was a 3-hour drive from Portland, nestled in the foothills of Mount Hood. Maya and James made the journey on a crisp autumn day, tension thick between them. They had agreed not to involve the police yet. Without concrete evidence, they risked alerting Whitmore and potentially putting Lily in greater danger. The cabin was modest but well-maintained, with a newer model SUV parked outside. Maya approached cautiously, her hand resting on the gun concealed beneath her jacket. James followed close behind, his breath visible in the cool mountain air. Through a window, they saw a woman moving around the kitchen, Claire Whitmore, matching the driver's license photo Maya had obtained. And sitting at the table, drawing in a coloring book, was a little girl with auburn hair. Lily, James whispered, his voice breaking. He started toward the door, but Maya caught his arm. Wait, she cautioned. We need to be smart about this. If we just burst in, they could run, or worse. They retreated to Maya's car to formulate a plan. Maya would approach alone, using her badge to gain entry under the pretense of investigating reports of suspicious activity in the area. Once inside, she would assess the situation and signal James if it was safe to approach. The plan worked better than they could have hoped. Claire, clearly unprepared for a police visit, let Maya in without question. The little girl looked up from her coloring, her eyes, so like James's, widening with curiosity. Hi there, Maya said gently. What's your name? The child glanced at Claire before answering. "Emma," she said softly. "Emma," Maya repeated, her heart aching at the false name. "That's a pretty name. Do you like living up here in the mountains?" The girl nodded. "But I miss school sometimes. Aunt Claire teaches me at home." Maya kept her expression neutral as she turned to Claire. "Homeschooling can be challenging. How long have you been doing it?" Claire's smile was strained. "About a year now. Emma's father thought it would be best, given her health issues." "Her father?" Maya asked innocently. "My brother," Claire said quickly. "He travels for work. I'm looking after Emma while he's overseas." Maya nodded, then moved to the window as if admiring the view. She gave the signal they had agreed upon, adjusting her scarf, and within moments, there was a knock at the door. The look on Claire's face when she opened the door to find James standing there would stay with Maya forever: shock, followed by the dawning realization that her carefully constructed world was about to collapse. "Daddy?" The little girl's voice was uncertain at first, then crescendoed into joy as recognition bloomed. "Daddy!" She launched herself across the room, and James fell to his knees, gathering his daughter into his arms with a sob that seemed to come from the very depths of his soul. Claire made a move toward the back door, but Maya was faster, blocking her path. "Claire Whitmore, you're under arrest for the kidnapping of Lily Callahan." The aftermath unfolded like a fever dream. Local police were called, statements were taken, and Lily, who had indeed been told her name was Emma, was examined by doctors and child psychologists. Physically, she was healthy; emotionally, she was confused but resilient. Robert Whitmore was arrested at his office the same day. The evidence against him was damning. DNA samples had been collected from Lily without James's knowledge or consent, and documents found at the cabin revealed Whitmore's plan to use her as the centerpiece of a refiled lawsuit against the pharmaceutical company. Claire, facing serious charges, turned state's evidence against her father. She revealed that Whitmore had convinced her that taking Lily was justified, that the pharmaceutical company's negligence had orphaned the child, and that using her to bring down the company was a form of justice for her mother. "He made it sound noble," Claire told prosecutors. "Like we were saving other children by doing this." For James and Lily, the road to recovery was long and winding. Lily had been told that her father had sent her to live with Aunt Claire while he was sick, a cruel manipulation that took time and therapy to unravel. But children are remarkably adaptable, and with each passing day, Lily reclaimed more of herself. Maya remained a constant in their lives, first as a support through the legal proceedings, then as a friend, and eventually as something more. The bond forged through their search for Lily had grown into a deep connection that neither had expected but both treasured. For years to the day after Lily's disappearance, Maya sat on the porch swing of the house she now shared with James and Lily, watching as father and daughter planted sunflowers in the garden. Lily, now 12, laughed as she smeared dirt on her father's cheek, and James retaliated by gently sprinkling soil in her hair. Maya smiled, remembering the broken man who had walked into her office 4 years earlier. The truth they had discovered was darker than either could have imagined, but from that darkness had emerged a new kind of light, a family forged through adversity and bound by love that had withstood the most unimaginable test. As if sensing her thoughts, James looked up and caught her eye, his smile warm with gratitude and love. Lily followed his gaze and waved enthusiastically. "Maya. Come help us. Dad's doing it all wrong." Maya laughed and rose from the swing. Coming to the rescue, she called back. "As always." And as she joined them in the garden, kneeling in the soft earth to plant seeds that would reach for the sun, Maya knew that some searches ended not just with truth, but with something far more precious, a second chance at happiness. If